There's a problem hiding in plain sight on pretty much every vacation rental website. It's this fundamental flaw that costs bookings, it frustrates owners, and it's misinforming the entire internet about your inventory. And the crazy thing is, until now, it didn't even really have a name.
Okay, so let's get into it. First, we're going to define the problem. Then we'll look at how basically every other industry on Earth has already solved it. After that, we'll break down the 4 hidden costs of ignoring it, figure out why this gap even exists in the first place, and wrap up by looking at what's really at stake on your single most valuable digital page. So let's start with a scenario. And for anyone managing a decent portfolio of properties, this is going to feel very, very familiar.
This is it. This is the question, the one you get from a super important owner who's just been browsing your website like any other guest, and they've had to scroll past older units, properties they know are booked solid for months, only to find their beautiful, available 5-star condo buried deep down. And you, the manager? You don't have a good answer. The really uncomfortable truth is nobody chose that order. It's just whatever the system decided to do. And that right there is the listing order problem. It's what happens when your most important sales tool, your property grid, is organized more like a dusty old filing cabinet than an actual sales floor. Maybe it's sorted by when a listing was added, or some random database ID. It has absolutely nothing to do with what a guest actually wants to see, or more importantly, what you need to sell. Now you might be thinking, well, I have some tools for that. But the problem is, those tools just aren't built for professional scale. Sure, you can feature a couple properties, or drag and drop a few things around. But when you hit 100 properties, or 200, or 500, it becomes this impossible chore that no one has time to keep up with. It's a to-do list that just never, ever gets done.
Okay, let's switch gears and see how this compares to literally every other major online marketplace. Because, spoiler alert, they figured this all out about a decade ago.
For companies like Amazon, Booking.com, even Google, the ranking of the results is the entire business model. It's a deeply strategic decision, and it's all driven by data. But for most direct booking sites, it's just an afterthought. It's just a container that holds the data. And this way of thinking leads to this massive operational gap. I mean, entire professions, merchandising teams, exist just to optimize what shows up where and when. They're constantly using data on availability, on reviews, on conversion rates to drive revenue. Meanwhile, our industry is kind of just relying on a default setting that someone probably chose years ago and never looked at again. And if you need any proof that order matters, just look at Google. The #1 result gets more than a quarter of all the clicks. By the time you get down to position 10, it's less than 3%. The order isn't just a nice-to-have, it dictates what people see and where the money goes. It really is the entire product.
Okay, so this isn't just some philosophical debate. This problem has 4 very distinct, measurable, and really expensive consequences for your business. The first and most immediate cost is to your guest experience. Think about it. Most visitors who land on a direct booking site, they're just browsing. They haven't put in dates yet, so they're seeing everything. Available properties, unavailable properties, all mixed together. So what happens if the first properties a guest sees are all booked solid? Well, they assume nothing's available and they just leave. That friction is a total conversion killer. And when your conversion rate is already hovering somewhere between 0.5% and maybe 2% on a good day, you just can't afford to be showing out-of-stock products at the top of your page. But guests aren't the only ones watching. The second cost hits your inventory, your lifeblood, because your property owners are paying very, very close attention. See, when an owner can't find their property, they don't blame some arbitrary system default. Nope, they blame you. They think you're burying their property on purpose. And with owner churn rates hanging out between 20 and 25% and acquisition costs running into the thousands, this silent frustration is a massive, massive risk to your business. All right, the third cost. This one is all about the fact that you are sitting on a gold mine of performance data that is being completely and totally ignored. And I'm talking, of course, about guest reviews. The data on this is just crystal clear. Properties with better reviews, they book more often and they earn more money. The OTAs know this. They use this data as a primary ranking signal. And yet, on most direct booking sites, a 4.9-star property could be sitting on page 5, while a 3.8-star property is right there on page 1. It makes no sense at all. And finally, the fourth cost.
Your static, unchanging list is actively teaching search engines and this new wave of AI travel planners all the wrong things about your business.
I mean, think about how an AI reads your site. First, it assumes logically that your top listings are your best and most relevant ones. Then it checks their availability and sees that they're all booked up. So what's the logical conclusion? It learns that you have nothing good to offer. You are literally training the future of travel search to send your best customers directly to your competitors. So you're probably asking, okay, if this problem is so damaging and the solution seems so obvious, why does it still exist across the entire industry?
Well, the problem exists because it falls right into a blind spot, a gap between all the major software vendors. Your PMS vendor, they focus on operations. The website builders, they're all about design. Channel managers are focused on distribution. And revenue tools are focused on pricing. No single category actually owns the logic of what shows up where on your own website.
You know, we've seen this movie before. This is exactly where revenue management was a decade ago, right? Before dynamic pricing tools came along and created a whole new category. Listing order is sitting in that exact same gap, just waiting for a solution to make it a must-have for every professional manager. So let's bring all this home and focus on the real opportunity here, which is all about transforming your most valuable digital asset. The entire industry is pouring money into direct booking. It's the second biggest channel, and it's growing like crazy. Managers are spending a fortune on SEO, on ads, on email campaigns, all to drive traffic to their property grid. And then, at the most critical moment of the entire sale, they just leave the order of that page completely to chance.
So the final question is this. Your listing order is telling a story, whether you've written it or not. It's telling guests what's available, it's telling owners what you value, and it's telling search engines what you actually have to offer. The only question is, are you in control of that story?